1 week season.
Hey, and welcome in, OWS fam. So glad you're with us. We are back in the lab, the DFS lab, coming at you, where we build a lineup on DraftKings and use that as a way to talk through the upcoming slate. Of course, it is week one is upon us. 2025 NFL season is here. Hopefully, the families are prepared. Hopefully, you've just had that sit down conversation saying that you're going to be MIA for the next 4 months. Because we're here. Football is finally back. I can't wait. I'm your host, Cheeseman. So glad that you are with us. If you have a chance, give a like and subscribe to the channel. By the way, it is September 4th, Thursday, when this show is going live, and it is my privilege to welcome up Mr. StatATL. And Stat, I know it is, I don't really do best ball, but you never really take a break from the cycle of drafting. Of course, it's a different kind of drafting, but your mind is probably still in best ball land a little bit, is it? Or have you made the transition yet?
It is still in best ball land, and I have a very understanding wife who is just all excited about playoff best ball and then regular season best ball all summer.
So she gets pretty into it. Wait, are you for real? She gets pretty into it.
Yeah, I mean she's drafted a couple teams. We actually had her office draft tonight. We drafted from Taqueria del Sol, nice little Mexican spot where I live in Atlanta, and it's Taco Tuesday, so we can't have her work draft interfere with Taco Tuesday. So
that's right, man. Do you guys keep up Taco Tuesday pretty religiously?
I don't know about every week, but 2 or 3, at least every other week, at least twice a month, go grab a margarita, have a couple tacos.
Yes. We also had tacos tonight. Actually, I made tacos last night, and then we had the leftovers tonight, but I made a lot. So, just sometimes got to have some leftovers, just to make it easy with kids' practices going a million different directions. But nice, man. I mean, so yeah, like what's kind of your feeling going into week one, just kind of bird's eye, kind of zooming out here. Does kind of your approach as you've thought through the many best ball drafts you've done this offseason, do you feel like that gives you kind of a pretty good understanding of where teams are, or do you have to make a pretty big switch for DFS?
I feel like it's probably different for everyone, but I do feel like it's a mindset shift, because when you're doing best ball, you're thinking about the full season. Like there's obviously no, waivers, no ad drops in best ball. So, you're spending time not only thinking about who's going to be strong plays early in the season, but, who has that upside for later in the year, thinking about, injuries and how that may open lanes for certain players. And all of that is not really pertinent in week one. Like it's, you're only worried about this week, kind of that 1 week season mentality. So
yeah,
it's a little bit of a shift for sure.
Truly 1 week season. By the way, everything at oneweekseason.com, all the content written or otherwise, podcasts, inner circle content, all that is free this week. So if you guys are watching this and you are not yet a subscriber, you can go sign up on the site right now. You do not have to put in a credit card or anything like that. You can just sign up and enjoy the content for week one. Maybe you'll find some content you like. There's really something for everyone on 1 week season. Not everyone thinks the exact same way. So you can kind of find content providers that really kind of encompasses your mindset.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely one of the great traditions that we've had going on the site for years now, where everything's free week one, and we don't hold anything back. You've got all the contributors, some Millie Maker winners on our staff, and some really sharp minds, and people kind of giving you their opinions. And I think it's really great. There are several other contributors whose stuff that not yet, but later in the week that I feel like I like to consume, because I feel like I like the way that they approach slates, and I feel like it helps give me a different perspective as well. And then there are other contributors that I don't feel like I align with as well, and that's what's great about having so many options. You can kind of feel out whose voice sounds really works for you, it really hits home. So I think that's one of the great things about the site, and a lot of written content. Obviously a lot of podcasts and stuff like this. We're doing these daily, so a lot of great content to consume if you're getting real excited for football season.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let me pull up DraftKings here, and the first thing I wanted to quickly touch on was this article that I'm not sure, it's probably live on the site by now. We're recording this on Tuesday night for week 1, but a contest selection article. Let me refresh my page here. That you wrote. Kind of what's the main thrust of this article, and how important is contest selection as we kind of get ready to build a lineup for week 1?
Yeah, it's an article that I write every year and kind of put out on a weekly basis, kind of highlighting my view of the best contests, generally the flattest payout structures, and just kind of the premise of the article is just, it's a little bit like bankroll management of, hey, this is what I'm willing to put in play for like the NFL season, and kind of saying, hey, like you really shouldn't be throwing in more than 10. If you really want to be aggressive, maybe 20%, but I still think that's high of your bankroll on a given week. Generally, like I like around 10% is what you should put into play. And then just what type of contest should you play? A lot of people look at it and say, that very first contest on the top of your screen right now, the $5 Millie Maker. Well, that's got 830,000 entrants. Like, I think I called this out and said, hey, like that's almost the size of New Orleans. Like that's like your 50th biggest city in the U.S. Like you're basically playing against an entire city of people. Yeah. And if you look at it, 1 million goes to first. So it's, basically a third of the prize pool goes to just the top position. So a lot of these if you're looking at the $100 Millie Maker, it's like 40%. Because it's a million into only a $2.5 million prize pool. So just kind of laying out that and making sure that when you enter a contest, like you have the right expectations. Like if you're only playing whatever $50 a week and like it's just for fun and you don't care if you lose it all, yeah, sure, play the $5 Millie Maker, enter 10 teams, and just have the expectation that you're going to lose. But if you're trying to sustain a bankroll for the full season, like that contest that's just below the 2 Millie Makers, that $400,000 play action, or that $175,000 fair catch, like that's a $12 single entry. Like these are much flatter payout structures where even if you have a good lineup, even if it's not first place, it still pays really well. Where some of these really top heavy contests, like that $100 Millie Maker, if you don't mind clicking into that, you could come in 10th place and beat however many folks are in this, you could beat 27,000 people and come in like 20th place or something like that. And I'm not saying that $4,000 isn't anything, but compared to $1 million, it's just such a small percentage where, if you look at some of the flatter payout structures, getting good lineups, the couple times a season where you have a top placing lineup really rewards you for those lineups.
Yeah, I'm looking through right now. Like, in that one we were just looking at, first place took 40% of the prize pool. Now in this one, this is a $75.
It's still 50%, or excuse me, it's still 20%. Like I wouldn't even consider this to be a good contest.
Yeah, so this is still 20% to first place. So
look at that $12, the fair catch, $12 fair catch.
Okay, the doesn't matter which one.
I don't think those are generally very structured.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's not even 10% to first in this contest. So much flatter payout. Because getting a lineup towards the top of the leaderboard is tough. You really want to be rewarded for when you do. So I wrote the article. It's at least, it's probably 1,000+ words, laying out all the different contests that I like at the different buy-in levels, like small stakes, medium, higher stakes, which contests I think are best for sustainability and kind of my thought process behind it. And it's something that, again, it's free on the site every week. It's free on the 1 week season Twitter every week, or X. So obviously, if you don't already, give that account a follow. 1 week season over on X is great follow as well.
Yep, absolutely. Check that out. No, that's great stuff. And it just, yeah, like I remember entering contests last year. Like sometimes I would just take 15 lineups and I would I think sometimes you would do this too, but I'd spread it across multiple like single entry or 3 max contests mainly. And I remember there were some weeks where a given contest I would be in, first place would be like 20 points higher than another contest that I would be in. So there can be a crazy amount of variability. Now that the contests that I was in that were smaller entry sizes where the first place was not scoring as much, but still it really opens your eyes to the fact that not all contests are equal. Like the slant, which is a great contest payout structure on DraftKings, as we all know by now, pretty much the best players are max entering that. The sharpest players on DraftKings are max entering that $9 contest. And so you're going to have to beat a lot of very, very good players. Whereas there might be some contests where there's not as many just of the experts, so to speak, more fish, I guess you would say. I mean, again, this is not like the same industry as we had in 2015 where you had, players who didn't really know what they were doing. And I feel like a lot more people know what they're doing now, but still there is some variability in just kind of the makeup of these contests that is worth looking into.
Oh, for sure. Especially the single entry contest, even the best player in the world can only enter one roster.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times they structure it a little bit differently as well. All right. So with that, let's jump in. What contest do you want to go with today to build a lineup for?
Honestly, any of those single entries that we talked about, but that I think we were just talking about that $12. That's fine. I think generally last season we built for a $50 single entry every single week. I have to go back and pull the stats, but I think we went like 8 for 17 or 8 for 18. So we had almost a 50% cash rate, which for a tournament's pretty awesome.
With top 20%, cashing typically, and us going, 1 for 2. That's solid, man. Those are solid. Those are not rookie numbers right there.
No, especially since we're building these on Tuesday every week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'll give you quickly like a kind of like some spots that I've been looking at so far early in the week that I'm liking, and then you can do the same. We can get into the build. So one guy that I really like is this week. He's honestly at the top of my list right now. Is Bo Nix. A couple factors that I really like about him this week is he is at home, sophomore year for him, and I feel like with having a year under his belt, Sean Payton could really start to open up. And this is, I was actually reading. I liked Bo Nix last year. There was a couple weeks where I was just like, I really liked him, and then I just got, my mind just walked me away from clicking the rostering him on DraftKings, and he ended up having a huge week, and I just kicked myself. I just was like, why did I not trust my conviction and just play him? But I really liked him last year, and then was reading the 1 week season article. I think it was Mike who wrote this one for 1 week season, just was talking about year 2 for Bo Nix, the weapons that he has, and just that Sean Payton is probably going to really open up the playbook, and also that Denver has the mindset of they will run up the score and they will continue to try and execute their offense late into a game, even if they have a big lead, which you could definitely see them doing against Tennessee at home. So, I really like the idea of Bo Nix, maybe stacking him with Sutton, and just kind of seeing what he can do. And then the other one that I like Jaden Daniels a decent amount as well, but he's, pretty expensive. Bo Nix is not cheap either. There are definitely cheaper quarterbacks you can go with, but Bo Nix is definitely someone I'm looking at. It is a little tough sometimes sometimes it was not as clear to know who to stack him with. Marvin Mims Jr. also should be in line for potentially a bigger role this year. So yeah, man, that's one offense, one player that I'm really excited about right now. Probably at this point, I could see myself having a decent amount of Bo Nix this coming Sunday. What about anything you're looking at so far?
I think in terms of second-year quarterbacks, I feel like I'm really high on a lot of them. Jaden Daniels, obviously. I really do like Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I technically, he's a second-year quarterback. I think I'm really high, a season-long outlook on J.J. McCarthy from Minnesota. I mean, he got hurt in preseason last year, so he's kind of getting his rookie year. Technically drafted, a year ago, though. So, and I really like Drake May. I feel like those are second-year guys
Me too.
that I think are going to take a big step this year. I don't know how much I love them all for week one. I think that there are a couple of spots that I feel like I like better that I think on the surface for casual fans are not going to stick out. I typically do a first look that I haven't actually started doing yet. Usually they'll come out on Tuesday, a little behind from the holiday weekend for Memorial Day last weekend, but I'll work on that after our recording tonight. Probably have that out tomorrow. But just kind of very quick first look for us to do this show. I really liked the Carolina-Jacksonville game. I don't know that that's one that's going to stand out to a lot of casual fans. And then the Cincinnati-Cleveland game, like I feel like that's another game that has shootout potential. That I feel like people just see the Browns or say, "Oh, Cleveland, that they just suck." But they don't. I feel like there are paths to that game being a 35, 33 type, 38, 35 type game, like, a 70-point game. And I don't think people will think about it that way. And I think to a similar extent, Carolina and Jacksonville, just because all four teams have decent offenses, obviously, the Bengals have a very strong offense. They also have a very weak defense. And I think that there are just avenues for both of those games to play out a lot higher scoring than people think. Does that mean that it's going to happen, in a one-game sample size? No. But I think that if you played out both of those games 100 times with 100 different range of outcomes, I think both of those games have reasonably high possibilities of being the top scoring game on the main slate of the 12 games. You're on mute.
I could definitely see people overlooking that Cincinnati. I mean, same with both those games. I feel like Tampa Bay Atlanta is going to be a game that people are going to naturally gravitate towards. And then just some of the individual, like Jaden Daniels, people are going to want to play him. Pricing is soft, so you're going to have definitely just people are going to be able to fit in the studs that they want more or less. And so, I definitely think that, man, when people, my first initial look or reaction to that Cincinnati Cleveland game was, the Browns, like that they weren't a part of a lot of shootouts last year, but especially with Flacco starting, that potential opens up a lot more. So, all right, man, with that, do you want to start this lineup? Where do you want to go here first?
I mean, I think we should either go either Cleveland, Cincinnati, or Carolina, Jacksonville. Let's go Carolina, Jacksonville. I feel like that's a team that it probably won't get a ton. Maybe it will actually. It's so hard to tell so early in the week without really consuming any other content to see who people are, the talking heads are talking up. But to me, like I like Jacksonville. So let's start with Trevor Lawrence. He's cheap. He's 5,300. I feel like he's got 20, 25 point range of outcomes very easily this week, giving you a 5. Like, just because of how soft pricing is this week, I think you need to be thinking kind of on a very macro, very high level. You need to be thinking about scoring a ton of points. So, like, you always need to be building your lineups for stealing outcomes. And I think in order to, on a 12-game slate with really soft pricing, like, I think you're going to really have to be 230, 240, 250 points to win a big field tournament this week. So basically anybody that we put into a lineup today, like I want us to ask ourselves, could this guy score 20 points or 5x their salary? And I think, again, so $50,000 salary times 5 would be, 250. Like that's how I like to think about this from the 50,000 foot view. And so how does Trevor Lawrence kind of get to that? I think he's likely either rushing in a touchdown or he's throwing 3 or 4. So let's assume he's throwing 3 or 4, and let's get 2 different pass catchers in there. So if we go wide receiver, I think this has to be Brian Thomas Jr. I think Brian Thomas Jr. easily has a 5 for 102 touchdown, stat line in him. Multiple games of 25, 30 points last year. So I do really like that. And then I think for a little bit of a salary saver, keep me honest here. Okay, so I had 31 and 35. Like he had 2 games of his last 4 last year above 30 points. So
and 4 of 5 or 4 straight, of 20 or more. Which I mean, you're maybe not like winning a tournament with a 20-point score off of his salary, but you're not upset about that. It's still it's still keeping you going. It's not.
I think that if Brian Thomas scores 20 points, and this is in a larger field contest, which this one we're in of 17,000 entrants, I think you're kind of disappointed with that. Like there will be players in the $6,000 to $7,000 range that give you 25 to 30. So if you're only getting 20 from him, you're a little behind the 8 ball. But again, like we're building for ceiling outcomes, and 50% of his last 4 games that he's played, he scored 30 plus. Like, so we know that's in the range of outcomes. We know that's realistic I don't want to say to expect, but we wouldn't be surprised. And then I think if we're going to save a little bit of salary here, let's look at tight end for Jacksonville. Brenton Strange, he's down at 3,300, I think, going by memory here. So Evan Ingram out of town, so it's going to be the Brenton Strange show at tight end. Again, last year, kind of splitting the back, the tight end position. You're seeing weeks. You're seeing 18-point weeks, which would be a 6 times multiplier. But here's a guy that if he happens to catch a touchdown, you get a 4 for 40 and a touchdown type role or type stat line for 14, 15 points at $3K salary. Like I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
And I think he's showing that he's got more ceiling than that. If you look at some of Evan Ingram's lines from last year, so strong there. And then I think that if you're getting this type of outcome from Jacksonville, like Carolina is keeping this game respectable. So I think in general, a lot of people would kind of lean into a pass catcher here. I want to go a slightly different route. And I want to look at the running back. I want to look at Chuba Hubbard. One to just kind of fill a running back spot. But Chuba Hubbard last year, I think one of the things that flies under the radar, like if you look at his receiving line, you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 games out of 16 or 9 or 10 games out of 16, he had at least 4 receptions. So he's involved in the pass game. And obviously you're seeing a lot of rushing attempts. You're seeing most weeks in that 15 to 20 range with plenty of weeks above 20, 28, 26, 25 rush attempts. Like this is a guy that when they're in a competitive game is seeing the rock a ton. And, they moved out Adam Thielen. They traded him to Minnesota. They've got Jalen Coker on IR, kind of a surprise IR ad last week. So while they did draft Tet McMillan, and they still have Xavier Legette, like I think a lot of the offense is going to want to run through Chuba Hubbard. So I do like kind of putting him into this lineup here.
Yeah, love that, man. Love that. So that's a nice stack we got going on right there. This is a game That is the total of 46.5 as of right now, which is just one below the highest game of the week. Got a couple at 47.5. So this game is right there. It's kind of like just hovering right underneath the top ones. I like it.
Yeah. And then so let's grab some pieces from Cincinnati, Cleveland. Like we kind of talked about that game a good bit is one that I liked. Again, salary being not super tight. Like let's just go ahead and grab JaMarr Chase. Like I don't know that we have a challenge fitting him in here.
He was number one across most of the best ball, right?
Yeah, he was first overall basically in every draft.
Consensus, yeah.
And then I think that if JaMarr Chase is having a big game, it's because Cleveland is keeping it competitive. Like I think most of JaMarr Chase's big games last year came in games where the opponent scored 30 plus points against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, not a strong defensive unit. They'll be on the road. So, I think that there's multiple options. We could look at Jerry Jeudy. We could look at David Njoku, but I think let's maybe save a little bit of salary here. Let's go Cedric Tillman, a guy that had strong flashes last year, 4,400. A guy that I think very easily has, 20. Yeah, he had a 29-point game, but you look at that 3-game stretch, kind of in the middle of the year with, 18, 28, 19.5. Definitely, obviously injured towards the end of the year, but if you get that kind of range, that 18, 20 points at a 4K salary, you're happy with that as well. And so I do like that. Got a good bit of salary left still with one of the spots being defense. Let's try to fill that other running back spot.
Man,
and I think a spot, I feel like there's a lot of good options, but the one that kind of jumps out to me is a guy that, when he's historically been healthy, has been an $8,500 to $9,000 salary player in Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco's got a bit of a depleted wide receiver core with, Deebo Samuel now in Washington, Brandon Ayuk on IR to start the season. They've got Jawan Jennings, who's been hurt, just got back to training camp, I think yesterday or over the weekend for the first time. And then you've got Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle there. So I feel like this is a spot where I would expect Christian McCaffrey to see 20 to 25 touches. We know the upside that he has. Clearly has 40-point range of outcome here. And so with the salary, again, he's only 7,300. I think that let's pencil him in. Let's pencil him in here if that's cool with you.
Yeah, man. I mean, CMC is still just 1 year removed from just an absolute stud, like in 2023 NFL season. So obviously he could be over the hill, and we'll find out this coming season. But I like kind of leaning into him in week 1.
Me too. So I always I never like to save defense for the absolute end. I know a lot of times last year we would just kind of start the show by throwing in like a 3K defense and just kind of seeing what that led us. But we only have one spot left. So I think I'd be curious into throwing in Denver. I know we talked about Bo Nix, but Denver will be at home facing, Cam Ward, who was the first overall pick, but a rookie on the road. I think I like Denver's this week a good bit on a week, a week where salary isn't super constrictive. And again, obviously we can pencil down, but where does this leave us with 5,000 for a flex? I feel like it is a good amount. I think we could. I like Charbonnet, but I don't like generally playing 2 running backs from the same game. You could consider Calvin Ridley here for playing the Broncos D. A situation where the Broncos D gets you that pick 6 and Tennessee's playing from behind, throwing even more. I don't mind that. Yeah, I mean, again, Ridley's a guy that's got, if you're looking week 8, week 9, week 10, 25-point range of outcome. I want to take a look at Tampa Bay. We've got Chris Godwin out to start the year. And I think a name that's going to fly under the radar for folks is Emeka Egbuka. I think he's mid fours, like 4,500, 4,600, something like that. He's going to step in to an every down role with Chris Godwin hurt, with McMillan suffering that neck sprain. Like, it's going to be just him and Mike Evans out there. Kate Otten, the tight end, dealing with a lingering injury as well. 4,600, again, very easy for him. It's not predictable to get touchdowns, but a 5 for 80 and a touchdown line is, close to 20 points. Doesn't seem like that's doing a whole bunch at 4,500, 4,600. I really like this. I feel like Tampa doesn't have as many weapons, so that offense is going to be even more consolidated. So, yeah, let's throw in Egbuka here just to kind of round out this lineup.
Awesome, dude. And that rounds out the lineup indeed. So for those who are listening on the podcast, the lineup that we landed on here is a pretty big stack with double stack and bring back with the Carolina-Jacksonville game with Trevor Lawrence, BTJ, and Strange, the tight end, and then bringing it back with Chuba Hubbard, and then plugging in another correlation with JaMarr Chase and Cedric Tillman from the Cincinnati-Cleveland game, rounding it out with McCaffrey, Broncos D, and Egbuka. And Stat, good stuff, man. Week 1, it's a wrap. Any final thoughts before we send this one off? Heading into, football is finally here, and hopefully we have a good and enjoyable and profitable week 1.
Yeah, I mean, as always, hoping to see folks at the top of the leaderboard, but also hoping to see folks over on oneweekseason.com in the upcoming days. Again, everything is free week 1, so hopefully, you find some time to navigate over there, check out the site, check out some of the content.
Hit us up in the Discord. We're in there. You're in there dropping stats, like it's going out of style.
Awesome.
All right.
Looking forward to another season with you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Yep. Looking forward to it as well. And we'll talk to you soon. Good luck this weekend.
You too.